Al-Hanafiya in the Richmond area and making it all the way to the northern frontier as reported. Currently in the upper northern area, we have the Latifi Brigade. We also have the known or renowned, I should say, Red Eagle Battalion commander here. Also, we have the Black Bear commander, and speaking on behalf of the Allied Coalition Forces of the operational force, that will be the commander of the Boise. The moderator will be the Latifi Brigade commander, who is here from the Richmond, Virginia area, and we already mentioned the current commander of the northern frontier, that being the Red Eagle Battalion commander, who will be asking the questions. And for the coalition forces, as we mentioned, the boys here to respond. So first question, yes, everybody who is joining us, thank you for coming. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Yeah, so I have the first question here, and the first question to you is, tell us about the Quranic Revolution Declaration 21. Tell us about the cause and historical perspective of this Quranic revolution.
I think it's a very important question. He wants to know about the Quranic Revolution Declaration in 2021, its causes, its effects, its historical background. And a lot of people are asking how this revolution came about. What was the reason or the purpose behind the declaration of the Quranic revolution? And the answer is simple. For many, at least years, at least a generation, it has been noted and substantiated that the Quran has been neglected. The Quran itself says that it will be neglected, that the Prophet ﷺ will say in the future, in other words, the future for everybody speaking today, the day of judgment, the Quran will be saying, Ya Rabbi inna qawmi ittakhadu hadha al-Qur'ana mahjura. The Prophet ﷺ will say that about the Quran. So after thorough, reports and substantiative proof and evidence that this has become the case, therefore, the preservers and those who are professionally active in the industry of the Quranic revolution, situated in the capital of the Confederacy, Iblisi forces, Richmond, Virginia, says that this is absolutely something which has to be addressed. And therefore, the declaration itself was born out of that. There were a number of, as we still have today, authoritative bodies in place. And this was the first that was questioned. Those who are in authorities, not knowing the Quran, how could they give the way, the guidance of the Quran to those who actually needed it if they themselves did not have that? And those that they were employing also were doing exactly what it is that they wanted them to do. So this was the first declaration to be from the Quran, for the Quran, and objecting or refuting the entire model that are in the current well-known Muslim, quote-unquote, immigrant and non-immigrant communities as a whole. Again, you have a protocol which Allah Jalla Jalaluhu has already made clear by the Quran, by the example of the Quran given to the Prophet ﷺ. It's only natural at some point there will be a revelation, and the revelation is clear. The Quranic declaration was specifically to substantiate the truth and refute the falsehood in the practice of the people who claim to be Muslimin, to say ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. And this again, when you look at the Islamic centers, Islamic societies, these masjid this and masjid that, they have this model that really mimics the non-Muslim model. They have their board members, and what it is that they're doing, just go home and come back to pray and so forth. This is not what the Quran says, and this mimic, or this fraudulent mimic, I should say, and then declaring that this is Islam, caused the revolution of the Quranic declaration. MuhammadGambia rahimahullah did a lot of work in that regard. I mean, everybody will understand, it is his name that is on the first and foremost here. And this was in 2021, and the coalition forces got together and declared there to be a Quranic revolution. And that's where it actually stemmed off from. That's where the magnitude of it began. There were events that took place between some board members of Islamic centers in Richmond, and its surrounding areas. They tried definitely to challenge at some point, but for now, it's definitely under the control of the coalition forces. We definitely have retained the fray. And this is not by our means, but it's by the means of the Quran. Allah Jalla Jalaluhu says that. So I think that, as time goes on, everything that it set out to mean, justice, equality for all people, no matter who you are, no matter how elderly or how young you actually are, even if you were born today, you have a right. So that's what this Quran is saying. So I hope that, that sums it up in terms of that direct question. Or maybe, moderator, do you have something maybe you want to?
No, it's all good.
It's all good, okay.
So just to understand, when you refer to the Iblisi forces, are those Iblisi forces specifically in reference to the immigrant / or quote unquote non-immigrant individuals in Richmond?
So I think that, and it's a very important question. Who are the Iblisi forces and where do they exist? Iblis is the grand ancestor of all Iblisi forces, okay? And his job is to derail all of the human beings, all of the children of Adam who exist today. From the day one, he's been trying to do that, and we all know the history. So what people do not understand is that Iblis has a family. Iblis is not just one individual running around the world. Iblis has a family. He was the first jinn that was created, just like Adam was the first human being who was created. So what his progeny, who actually follow him and believe in him, do is that they work and they are in service to him. And their job is to encourage us human beings to be more about the worldly life, more about greed of this world, more about obtaining luxuries of this world, more about what Iblis said from day one, I am better than Adam. That's what they're about. And this is, again, it goes back to Iblis. Iblis is the source. He is the number one enemy number one. And we have, you understand, reward for the one who, eliminates that. Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab was responsible. But anyway, the ideology to derail people or to derail even yourself, to lie to yourself and to say that there is no creator who has created you and substantiates you, the one that you're going to return to. This is the problem. This is the first problem, because of the fact that you don't want to remember of the day that you're going to meet your maker. You don't want to consider that. And that again is the directive of the Iblis himself. Do not consider the hereafter. Worry about this world. There is no such thing, as life after death and that type of thing. So that is what it generates. It generates, for there to be so much of the immigrant community who have come here. They have not come here for standing for the banner of Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. They did not come here to see to the welfare of the Muslimin and of the humanity, as Muslims actually did in the time that they did it righteously. They did not do it for righteous reasons. They did it for what they already explained why they're doing it for, if you want to talk about immigrant community, because they know they're going to have light running all the time, water running all the time. To them that was paradise. That's why they came here. They did not come here for Islam. So you want to call that Iblisi way? Or do you want to call that the way of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, who had the option of living forever until this earth was folded up? He had that option and to be given whatever he wanted. He turned his back on that. What happened to us?
So, and to make this sound more of an interview than a khutbah, what I'm going to ask specifically is you explained what the Iblisi forces are, but for the intent of this interview, are we referring to Iblisi forces when you talk about Iblisi forces in Richmond, or the non-immigrant immigrants?
Any human,
Muslims in Richmond?
Listen. Let me be very, very direct about the situation, okay? Remember that there are elements involved here. This is a Quranic revolution. Our information, our intelligence, our weaponry is all of the Quran. So there is no, there's no gray area here. It is very clear. It is very direct. Anyone who is acting upon the indoctrination of Iblis, Lanatullahi alayhi, this is now it could be a Muslim, it could be a non-Muslim. Yes, a Muslim can act on the intentions and the guidelines of Iblis all day. Yes, so that has to be very clear. Now, a believer needs to understand that there are only two to work for, or two to look forward to. There's only this world and there's only the hereafter. A believer looks for the hereafter and wants the hereafter and strives for the hereafter. We don't completely neglect the world, but we know we're only here for a time and we're going to leave it. But when you have people calling themselves weak Muslims, a term that you do not even see in the Quran ever, you don't see it in any hadith, they made it up for themselves and all they talk about is dunya. Understand? Then you have to say what's going on here. You are Iblisi forces or what? Now Iblisi forces in the Quran, they could be munafiqeen, they could be mushrikeen, they can be kafirin, they can be zalimin, they can be mujrimeen, they can be fasiqeen, or they can be fasideen. You have different categories. They all exist today. So this is what, again, the Quranic revolution is here to, substantiate the truth and refute the falsehood. And you have different sects calling themselves Muslims, and not knowing exactly what they are following and how it came about. People do not know the first order. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم. They don't even know that. And so they don't practice that. So how are they supposed to know what being a Muslim is? I don't get it. You understand? That's why the Quranic revolution. You cannot say you are a Muslim without the Quran. It's wrong. So this is again a peaceful revolution. It is a civil revolution. It is definitely an intellectual revolution. And it is based off of the intelligence, the information, the education of the Quran. Yes. The directive of the junta is from the Quran. Correct.
So the revolution against Iblisi forces.
This is the revolution against all hostilities against the Quran. Period. And we know that they are all rooted from the actions and the allies of the Iblis. We know that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that clearly, and He tells us how to deal. فَلَا تَخَافُوهُمْ وَخَافُونِ. You understand? Awliya al-shaytan, this is the way we have to deal with them. So what is the problem? I mean, do people love Iblis so much and the Iblis way so much that they're willing to stand against the Quran? Okay, no problem. But realize that this is a Quranic revolution and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Jalla Jalaluhu is in charge of the junta. It's a period.
So now that you're speaking of the junta, we're going to go to the second question here. And before I go into the second question, if you can explain briefly what the junta members are and what the terminology coalition forces are.
Very good. Well, so first of all, the junta in layman terms, it means authority. Those who are in authority. And for us Muslims, first of all, if we really do hold firm to our oath of allegiance, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu, we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in charge of everything and everyone, right? However, He did give us certain elements. He did give us certain guides, okay? And today they're known as the spiritual junta. Who are these guides? Number one, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam's way, his example. We cannot even know it better than the companions of his who were closest to him, those who carried the banner after him. You understand? So this is natural for anyone who really practices will understand that. So we have Rasul, but we don't physically have Rasul right here, is it? So how do we follow Rasul? Spiritually, isn't it? Do we follow Rasul any other way? Even if we are claiming that we're listening to speeches about Rasul, it still can be translated spiritual. Even if we're reading about it, thinking about it, it still can be spiritually. But there's not just Rasul. There's also Jibreel alayhi salatu wassalam. Correct? He is the one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent most of the revelation. He would recite it with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What would they be reciting? The Quran. Quran is here today. Jibril is here today. The attaches who were with Jibril alayhi salatu wasalam in the Badrin brigade and all the way through are here today. Malaika never die. So these, how are they not coalition forces when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala substantiate to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam by you reciting and practicing the Quran, the angels are there with you. And we all know that we have within us a qareen anyway, each one of us. Correct? So, here, where's the junta now? Who's on the top? Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. Right below that, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. In between them, Jibreel is here today. Any question about who the coalition or the junta is at this point? Now, from you understand, an administrative, none or not purely spiritual, it has to do with religious, guidance also. As we all know, that it's a Quranic revolution, so we always have to refer to those elders who know the Quran the best. In Senegal, we have two there who know the Quran well. They are seniors to ours. They taught us. They are junta members. Also in Gambia, we have two there. In Dubai, we have Bushri and Idrissa Salah. You understand? They're imams. They're hufaz al-Quran. So yes, we will refer to them for religious, aspects that are general, but at the end of the day, we still have our triangle right here within our own selves. You have to have a level of authority at each level of administration. So what is the problem? But I think that that helps out a lot, and that has implications of its own.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you the second question here. Since you clarified what junta members, who the junta members are, and briefly, and their authority and their figure, during the probes, the junta members ordered